a missionary right in my own hometown. I'll be a missionary wherever I am found. I'll tell the gospel story, I'll spread it all around, until they know the Savior and souls are heaven bound.
Thank you so much for joining us for Things Most Surely Believed. Our dear brother, Evangelist Dan Manka, has a very interesting object lesson he wants to share with us relating to military, relating to cemeteries, and I'll let him take it from here.
Well, thank you, Dr. Yoho. Ed Smith has kindly allowed me to have a dog tag from World War II, and you have seen that there, I believe, in this video just a few seconds ago. It has the person's name, last name first, and then it has the serial number, and in this case it has AB, which would be the blood type AB in case they needed blood, and then there's a P down here, and the P is for Protestant. It could have a C for Catholic or a J for Jewish. And though Baptist is not exactly Protestant, we didn't protest against anything, but the Baptists are often lumped together with the Protestants because a lot of people don't understand that. But this is for identification purposes. And I went to get some dog tags at an Air Force base out in Utah, and the lady there was very kind in the gift shop. She had me buy a dog tag, and she went ahead and I think she gave me the second one free. And she gave me 2 chains, and one was a long chain to go over the neck to have the dog tags here. There'd be 2 of them, and sometimes they'd clank together. In later years and wars, we learned to put a plastic rim around it or rubber rim around it so the 2 would not make noise and have the enemy hear it. And so one is for around the neck, and the other one had a short chain on it, and it would go around the toe. If the head was separated from the body, they'd put one dog tag on the toe, and if there was a head that was separate, there's a notch in here, and they would put it in an open mouth in the teeth in that notch, to identify the head as to whose head that was, so it could be recognized and named in the burial. And of course, in Washington, or just across from Washington, in the cemetery over there in Alexandria, they have the Arlington National Cemetery, and there's the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. And they deliberately took soldiers from 3 different World War I battlefields. They put them in a room, and not knowing somebody coming in designated to pick one of those 3 caskets, one of those 3 bodies, not knowing which battlefield the man came from, somebody went in there in privacy with the doors closed, and I believe put a rose on one of those caskets. And then the doors were open, the man left, and others came in and took the one that had the rose on it. They don't know what battlefield it came from, what country it was from, but it was an American soldier who died somewhere over there in Europe. And he was the one designated for the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. And that way, any mother that had a son who was a doughboy in World War I, she had the privilege, based on what Uncle Sam had done, that she could imagine that maybe the doughboy that's there in the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier is her son. And then I've gone to Johnstown, and a lot of horrible things of over 2,000 people losing their lives in the Johnstown flood. We have a video that we made about a railroader there at the day of the Johnstown flood. But I've gone up to Grandview Cemetery. As a matter of fact, they have an incline there, and I pulled my station wagon on the incline and paid to have my car taken up to the top of the mountain to Grandview Cemetery. And there are a lot of tombstones that all have the same date, May 31st, 1889, because all these people, many people there in the cemetery, lost their lives in the Johnstown flood. But then there's a plot that has one tombstone after another, after another, after another, row upon row. There's nothing on the tombstone, just white tombstones there. And there's a statue of probably an angel, or maybe a mother, and at the bottom of it, the base of it, it says, dedicated to the unknown dead from the Johnstown flood, and there's hundreds of them. They don't know whose body this is, and whose body that is, and whose body this is, and so they put them in rows there to honor them without knowing their names. And then in addition to that, if you look in the hymnal, you can find hymns like Hold the Fort, and Let the Lower Lights Be Burning, and Dare to be a Daniel. And Philip P. Bliss wrote those hymns and many others that are in our hymnal. We had the privilege twice in the fall, this past fall, to go up to Rome, Pennsylvania and see the 18-foot high monument to Philip P. Bliss. The school children, after he died in a terrible train wreck and fire, they put their pennies and offering plates in various churches and Sunday school, and they brought the money together and they used it to make a monument to Philip P. Bliss. And of all the hymns that he wrote, they put on there author of Hold the Fort. And my family has chosen that as a theme song for our family ministry for the last 32 years. We've been to the fort in Georgia where that story comes from. And Philip P. Bliss's name is on the historical marker there at Star Fort down in Allatoona Pass in Georgia. But going back to Ashtabula where this train wreck took place, Philip P. Bliss and his wife were on their way to go to Chicago so that they could be involved in the music program with D.L. Moody in Chicago. And they crossed from Erie, Pennsylvania, going along Lake Erie on the train there. There were two locomotives. One was called the Socrates, and the locomotives were going across a trestle with the cars behind them, and the trestle collapsed. One locomotive was able to continue and got to the other side, but the other locomotive, possibly that Socrates, fell with all the train cars. And there's Philip P. Bliss and his wife in the train. Well, the train would have a pot-bellied stove. They'd have oil lamps there. They would have flames and fire. And so the mangled wreckage there of these cars caught fire, and Mrs. Bliss, they say, was trapped in there. And Philip, they say, chose not to leave, not to rescue himself, but he tried to get his wife free from the wreckage and save her life, and both of them burned. And other people burned too. And then I drove across town. A doctor flew me and two of my daughters over that trestle where it used to be, and there's a new viaduct. I've seen the old station, the train station. It was a morgue for all those bodies. And then I went across town with my car, and I went to the cemetery there. There's an obelisk, like the Washington Monument. Oh, it's about 30 feet tall, maybe. And it says, for the unrecognized dead of the Ashtabula train wreck. And on the side of it, it names some of those unrecognized dead. They don't know which body was which. They didn't have a dog tag like this to identify the body, but it says P.P. Bliss and wife. And they honor him and his wife at that grave, a mass grave of all these bones, all these bodies that were charred, and they didn't know who was who. But you know, even though they didn't know who was who, and even though at Johnstown they didn't know which body had what name, where a certain person's body was in the cemetery, God knows who's buried there. God knows who the unknown soldier is that's buried in Arlington Cemetery.
Some fascinating history. And I think one great thing we can take away from this spiritually is that the unknown dead are known to God. And Psalm 116:15 says, precious in the sight of the Lord is the death of his saints.
Hey.
Thank you so much for joining us for Things Most Surely Believed.
I'll pray for them to trust the Lord and turn from all their sin. I'll tell them they must hate what's wrong and let the Savior in. I'll give them hope from God's own word. I'll tell them what it means. I'll speak of God's own heavenly home that's grander than my dreams. I'll be a missionary right in my own hometown. I'll be a missionary wherever I am found. I'll tell the gospel